Another siren in the Russian night. Another orange bloom over steel towers and pipe racks. Another refinery that was supposed to be untouchable suddenly coughing smoke into the sky. What used to be unthinkable now looks routine. Long-range Ukrainian drones slipping past radars, trading a few hundred pounds of explosive for a few million barrels of headaches. If you want to understand where this war is bending, don't just watch the front lines. Watch the pump handles in Belgorod, the blackout schedules in Sevastopol, and the emergency meetings in Moscow, where people speak softly about gasoline. This phase didn't begin with a single spectacular strike. It grew into a drumbeat. Over late summer and deep into fall, Ukrainian long-range drones methodically targeted the Russian Federation's refining web, from the Black Sea to the Volga, from the Urals to the Caspian. Turning geography into a logistics problem the Kremlin can't wave away. Russia's refineries are large, compartmentalized, and spread over a landmass that swallows maps. They were built to keep fire from cascading and to route around damage. A single drone warhead is never going to erase a complex the size of a town. But that's not the goal. The goal is repeated outages, recurrent shutdowns of primary units, and cumulative friction that ripples outward to tank farms, pipelines, rail schedules, and retail pumps. The critical nodes are the crude distillation units. When a CDU trips offline, even for precautionary checks, downstream units starve. That's why images of a single burning column can conceal a wider halt. Reformers idle, hydrotreaters pause, catalytic crackers cool. Even a short shutdown forces inventories to be shuffled, deliveries to be reprioritized, and prices to twitch. Hit multiple plants in overlapping windows and you manufacture scarcity. Not everywhere, not equally, but persistently enough to break the feeling of normal. The names change, Ryazan, Novokuibyshevsk, Ufa, but the pattern does not. Primary units take the punch. Fire crews win the night. Engineers start the paperwork. Management declares a quick restart, sometimes achieves it, often with caveats, always with a new list of weak points to cover with netting, guards, and improvisation. When drones strike energy infrastructure, they open a parallel battle space where the scoreboard isn't territory taken but barrels disrupted, miles of railcar queues, and the number of regions where motorists film empty nozzles and irritated attendants. This is strategy by attrition of confidence. By late summer into fall, credible open-source analyses tracked refinery throughput stepping down from seasonal highs, with some weeks slipping to multi-year lows. Retail gasoline in parts of the Federation climbed faster than the general inflation rate. Reports flagged dozens of regions experiencing interruptions at various periods, followed by partial stabilization, then fresh disruptions as the strike tempo shifted. Moscow can spin battlefield maps. It cannot spin a 30-minute wait at a station on the M4. Fuel discomfort doesn't immediately topple governments, but it erodes the social compact. The implicit promise that far war won't become near burden. That erosion matters more in a long war than any single tactical advance. To stabilize domestic availability, Moscow has leaned on familiar levers, throttling refined product exports, job-owning producers, and allowing more gasoline to flow inward from Belarus and the Far East. On paper, this is manageable for an oil giant. Shift from exporting refined products to exporting more crude, then backfill shortfalls with targeted imports. Emergency rulemaking, waivers, quality additivization, duty tweaks can flood the market with a few extra percent of usable fuel quickly. But rules designed for a steady state rarely optimize for a war economy where the bottleneck is not crude in the ground, but conversion capacity above it. Every tweak comes with trade-offs: environmental backsliding, transport choke points, or price distortions that boomerang in the next quarter. Industry footage and local reports show refineries festooned with counter-FPV netting, new sentry positions, and procedural changes. More night watch, more dispersion of storage, more controlled hot work permits. The Duma has even signaled mobilization pathways for security roles around critical infrastructure. This will turn some clean hits into messy misses. It will not move a major refinery out of drone reach. Russian plants are big, old in places, modernized in others. Many hits translate into 1 to 2 week disruptions before units return to near-normal rates. That's the tomorrow headline. The real story is the next week's backlog, cascading maintenance slippage, and stressed crews who know restart doesn't mean good as new. Ukraine wants strategic effects without strategic escalation. Deep strike drones are the tool that promises outsized returns per dollar. Small industrial teams building airframes, mission programming routes that corkscrew around known air defense, and warheads sized to punch critical equipment without requiring missile stocks that Kyiv doesn't have in abundance. At long range, payloads stay modest. That means the center line is harassment, attrition, and timing, hitting when seasonal demand peaks, when maintenance windows are tight, when holiday traffic spikes. One drone won't end a refinery. 10 drones in 3 weeks can ruin a region's month. Every new plume over a different oblast says the same thing to Russian citizens. Distance is not defense. Every line at a pump says the same thing to the Kremlin. This war is now inside your administrative schedule. For partners watching from Europe and the US, the subtext is sturdier. Ukrainian ingenuity is stretching Russian logistics at a fraction of the cost Russia pays to patch it. Kyiv has learned the hard way that Russia can't permanently break Ukraine's grid with bombardment alone. Crews repair, reroute, rebuild. The inverse is also true. Ukraine cannot switch off Russia's refining sector with drone raids. The targets are too many, too redundant, too far. But that bar is set too high. The operational goal is not darkness, it's dimness and doubt. Russia can show national averages that look stable, while particular regions swing wildly. Averages don't cue, people do. The Kremlin will highlight macro resilience, new export flows, stable diesel for the military, quick restart claims, while governors in affected regions handle the angry calls. This center-periphery imbalance is exactly what Kyiv wants to widen. The Russian military's dependence leans to diesel, and many refinery hits constrain gasoline more than diesel. That makes this campaign less about starving tanks and more about straining civilian patience and business continuity. You don't need soldiers to stall for a logistics headache to become a battlefield problem. You need late deliveries, pricier spare parts, and contractors who show up angry. The measure of success is no longer did it burn. It's did the disruption stack? Think about it like software bugs. One bug annoys you. 3 bugs at once make you close the app. Ukraine is trying to stack disruptions faster than Moscow can patch them. Refinery hits, grid repairs in occupied Crimea, port bottlenecks on the Black Sea, and periodic strikes on rail nodes that move fuel. None of these are decisive alone. Together, they crowd out the Kremlin's room to maneuver. In information warfare, you must show your work. Satellite images of scorched units, drone footage of impact, local traffic videos at pumps. These loops are why the campaign bites politically. They're hard to memory hole. They're easier for Kyiv to repeat than for Moscow to prevent everywhere, every night. If Western long-range munitions arrive in bulk, longer reach, heavier warhead systems would shift effects from disruptive to destructive at select choke points. Power distribution to refineries, key compressor stations, major catalytic units that are hard to replace quickly. Kyiv wouldn't need many such strikes to change boardroom risk calculus across Russia's energy sector. If Moscow adapts faster, the Kremlin can dedicate better short-range air defenses, push more camouflage, accelerate spare part pipelines, and pre-position mobile firefighting kits. It can also clamp down on information leaks, making local disruption harder to verify. That will blunt the optics and shave downtime. But adaptation has a cost. Air defenses and manpower pointed inward aren't pointed at the front. As heating season bites across Ukraine, Russia will retaliate with more grid strikes. Kyiv is counting on layered air defenses and hardened repairs to keep the lights not bright, but on. Russia is counting on cold to erase memory of summer cues. The country that manages public expectations better will own the winter narrative. This isn't about a single refinery. It's about the Russian state's claim to be a friction-free energy superpower. Every interruption chips at that brand. If the Kremlin spends political capital keeping gas lines short, it has less to spend keeping elites calm, governors aligned, and defense factories humming. Both sides have discovered that war in 2025 is fought by factories as much as brigades. Ukraine's advantage is insurgent hardware and software, cheap airframes, smarter guidance. Russia's advantage is mass and depth. The line between them is logistics. How quickly you can turn an explosion into back to normal, and how many times you can do it before normal means worse than last quarter. Even when the numbers look survivable, output down a slice here, prices up a slice there, the politics look brittle. People do not live in averages. They live in neighborhoods where the fuel truck came late. They remember the week they had to drive to 3 stations. They don't riot for that. but they stop believing the promise that the war will not touch them. Hitting energy targets that are clearly military relevant and avoiding unnecessary civilian harm is not just law, it's strategy. The legitimacy of Ukraine's campaign rests on careful selection and messaging. The line is bright: strictly military advantage, strictly proportional, strictly within the bounds that keep partners comfortable. Drones are a powerful tool, not a magic wand. The gains from refinery pressure compound best when combined with maritime strikes, rail harassment, and battlefield tempo that forces Moscow to choose between defending depth and resourcing the front. Combined arms, but for economies. This new normal, drones over refineries, governors soothing motorists, quick repair crews racing dawn, is not a sideshow. It's the war entering the Russian daily routine. Kiev's campaign won't break the backbone of a giant energy sector overnight, but it doesn't have to. It just has to keep nudging the system off balance while Ukraine builds the next rung of long-range options. And that is why every plume matters. Not because a single column of smoke changes global oil markets, but because it changes who in Russia can pretend the war is far away. When the center can no longer guarantee convenience to the periphery, the political math shifts. Quietly at first, then all at once. If you found this breakdown useful, subscribe and stay with us as we map the war by systems, not slogans. Tap the bell so you don't miss it, and share this with someone who still thinks the front line is the only line that matters.